Hi, this is Rishabh Rajan for AskAudio, and this is the all-new Akai Fire, the first dedicated hardware controller for FL Studio. Let's open it up and see what we get. So the controller is powered by USB, and we have an included USB cable here. The included documentation is quite basic, though they do include a little cheat sheet which has a lot of helpful information in there. Now, if you purchase this controller, you also get a copy of FL Studio 20 Fruity Edition, so no need to invest in the software separately, but you can always upgrade to the higher editions of FL Studio if you want. The hardware is built really well. You get these nice rubberized feet at the bottom, so it's stable. It's also quite compact, fully bus powered, so it should work very well with a portable setup. There's no setup involved, just plug it into your computer, have FL Studio running, and it just works. Alright, so let's check out the hardware. The most noticeable aspect here is the 4x16 grid, which follows the FL Studio sequencer. We'll check out the step sequencing in a minute, but the controller can also run in this note mode. So you can use this mode to play melodies and chords, and up top here you can change up the scales. So kind of like the Ableton Push, you get a variety of different scales, even including a chromatic scale. Next, there's this drum mode, which is modeled after the FBC. That's an instrument available in FL Studio. So you get two 4x4 banks of buttons to trigger one-shot samples. Now, you're not limited to using this with FBC. You could use it with any instrument that would follow this kind of a sample playback system. Then lastly, there's a performance mode. Now, if you don't already know this, FL Studio also has a performance mode, kind of like Ableton Live's session view. But unfortunately, you can't just use it as is. You need to prepare your session for it. Alright, so those are the 4 different modes that Fire runs in. There's a little transport section here. Up top here, we get 4 dials. These are touch-sensitive, continuous, endless encoders. So touch-sensitive meaning as soon as you touch the dial, FL Studio will immediately know that you are controlling the parameter. Very cool. On the right here, there's a select dial, which also has a push button. On the left here, we have 4 different modes for the 4 encoders. Alright, now let's see if we can create something from scratch using the controller as much as possible. So I have a blank session loaded up here. Well, technically it's not blank. There are 4 different samples preloaded. A pattern is selected, and we can now use the buttons to program in a step sequence. So this is the hi-hat pattern. Now before I play it, we can also do a quick tap tempo to set the BPM. So I'll hold down Shift here and tap on this button. And as you can see in FL Studio, we are updating the tempo in real time. We're at 122. If I play, we can hear the hi-hat pattern. So this is just the first bar. If I want to extend this, I can go here and access the second half of the pattern. And now we have a 2-bar pattern. Let's add in some snares. I'll go back to that first section. Add some kicks. So this is classic FL Studio step sequencing on the channel rack, which used to be called the step sequencer. But now let's say I don't like some of the sounds. Like for example, if I want to swap out this hi-hat, now first I need to select it. So I can hold down Alt here, and with the select dial, select that particular channel. Alright, now I can tap the browser button. And now we can scroll through the browser. We can use the push button to open and close folders. Let's scroll down to the packs folder, drums. Let's go into the hi-hats folder. Now to audition the sound, you can press this button. Let me stop the playback here. So let's say I like this one. I want to load it in. I can push the select dial. We have a few options here. I'm going to select Send to Focus Channel or Selected Plugin. And that'll swap out the existing hi-hat. So that's pretty cool. Without using the software, we've managed to swap out a sound using the hardware. Let's do the same for the kick. So as long as that particular channel is in focus, we can find the sound in the browser. And then when we push that select button, this first option will ensure that the sample will be replaced. I also like that you can do this in real time, but of course you can stop playback and just do this offline as well. I actually like this kick better. So I'm going to replace the previous one with this one. Alright, so that sounds pretty cool. Now, what are the other things we can change? Let's say we want to make velocity changes. So we can just hold down a particular step, and this first dial here will adjust the velocity. You're basically seeing the graph editor there in FL Studio. So the second dial there will change the panning. The next one, mod X, which is filter cutoff. And the last one, mod Y, which is filter resonance. I want to add a little fill here and play around with those parameter changes. I don't want those 4 hits to be that loud, so I can hold all 4 down and reduce the velocity simultaneously like this. Or I can do it one by one. So I want to create a gradual reduction in velocity, so something like that. I can even change pitch of individual steps, so just hold down an individual step and twist the select dial. Doesn't seem to be working. Oh, we still have the browser open, so let's close the browser. And now we can hold down a step and twist the select dial to change the pitch of individual steps. This should sound pretty cool on hi-hats, so let's do it to these 4 hits here. I'm actually going to do the opposite, so start on a lower pitch and get higher. Nice. We can add accents to individual steps. So hold on Alt and tap this button. Now in accent mode, this dial here will adjust the default accent velocity. And now let's just add specific accents. So now those specific steps will be accented. Let's add a few on the other page. Now this is going to be more obvious when your regular velocity is a bit lower than the accented velocity. So that's pretty cool. Now one thing I really wish we could do was to add swing. There's this cool swing parameter here on the channel rack. We can't quite do that on this controller as far as I know. But we can add a shift on individual step. So for example, on this particular step, I want to add a bit of a time offset. Let's hear what that sounds like. Let's do it a bit more. And you can hear that slight swing that's being added to that step. Let's do it over here as well. Pretty cool. You'll notice the colors for all the channels are the same. The pads have RGB LEDs, but you can only change the color on the software. So if I color this particular track differently, now you can see that channel has a different color. Let's do the same for the hi-hat. And now we have this light blue color on the hi-hat lane. Alright, so that's step mode. Let's now add in some parts in the note mode. Again, using the select dial to navigate the browser. So what I've noticed is that I have to keep an eye on the computer screen to see where I'm at. The tiny screen on the controller can be a bit difficult to look at and navigate through, especially if you want to run through this stuff really quickly. Okay, so I want to load in Harmless now, but I don't want to send it to the selected channel. Let's create a new channel for it. Cool. Now, one issue is that we can't load in presets or at least browse through presets with the controller, so we will have to access that on the computer. This is where maybe a more full-fledged manual would have come handy. Anyway, this is the sound I want to use. Let's get out of the browser mode. We can use the select dial to access different portions of the channel rack. As you can see, the red rectangle there. If I push that dial, I can also access the different scales. I'll choose the major scale for now. It's a bit too low, so I can use these buttons here to transpose up in octaves. Now by default, FL Studio does not assign a new channel rack channel to a mixer insert, but we can do that with the controller here. Back in step mode, if I push this select dial, now I see the mixer insert assignment for the channel. I'll set it to number 5. So now Harmless is on insert 5. And not going directly to the master. Let's say we want to add an effect to this channel. Back in the browser, let's go into the effects folder. Let's load in this delay plugin. I'll select center selected channel or focused plugin. And now that effect is placed on the mixer insert that has harmless. Now again, I can't change presets with the controller, so let's just do this with the mouse. I'll reduce the width down really low because I just want a wee bit of delay there. Cool. Now let's look at recording parts in real time. I want to enable loop recording, so I'll hold down Alt and tap this button here. It was already on, so I'll just turn it back on. Now hit the record button, hit play, and then just play out the parts. There is a metronome feature that we can turn on. So again, Alt, clicking on this button will enable the metronome. So when I hit play here, you can hear the metronome. And now this part is recorded. We don't need the metronome anymore, so I'll turn it off. Get out of record mode. The sound is a bit loud, so I can reduce the volume on the channel or even on the mixer, because now it's on a separate mixer insert. The first dial here controls volume. Let's add one more instrument, maybe a bass part. I really like the idea of this loop recording with the controller. When I'm working in FL Studio, I rarely ever do that, so it's nice to be producing in a different way once in a while. Alright, so I'm going to load in 3x oscillator here for the bass part. It's going to be a new channel. Let's go to step mode and assign it to a specific insert on the mixer. Let's go back to note mode. Back in this major scale mode. I want to move this lower, so let's push it down a couple of octaves. So it's a pretty basic sine wave tone, but we can make it a bit more interesting with some saturation. So how about we load in the fruity wave shaper? So I've only been doing this for maybe about 10-15 minutes, but I'm really getting the hang of using this one dial to navigate through the browser. But of course, keeping an eye on the computer screen to see where I'm at. This part sounds a bit better now with the saturation. Let's hear it with the other parts. Alright, I'm just going to lay in a bass line here. This workflow reminds me so much of Ableton Live with the push hardware. Really nice to be able to layer in parts in real time like this. Now, I haven't been able to figure out a way to quantize parts on the controller, so I'll just do it in the software. But that would be a very helpful feature to have, quantizing in parts after they've been recorded in. I'll just do a quick quantize in the piano roll. Let's play it again. Okay, I'm not that happy with the bass part, but let's move on and check out the drum mode. So to make use of this, I think the best example would be to use FPC. So I'm going to go ahead and load it in. And as usual, I'm going to switch to step mode and assign it to an independent mixer insert. And now let's go back to drum mode. So Bank A is accessible directly over here. I'm going to load in a different drum rack. Maybe this percussion kit. So Bank A is accessible over here, and then Bank B is, as you can see, completely blank. But if there were sounds, I could play them from the buttons over here. Now, finger drumming on these buttons is a bit awkward because they're so tiny and so right next to each other, but you do kind of get used to it. Now there is no velocity sensitivity, and this even applies to note mode. Let's go back to a melodic instrument, maybe the bass. So if I play softly or loudly, there is no difference. Now they are marketing this as a velocity sensitive controller, so I don't know, maybe in the future there is going to be a software update. But for now, let's go back to the drum mode and layer in some parts. Now I could have done an entire drum pattern here, but since we already have it on the step sequencer, let's just move along. Not too happy about that bass part. Now one good thing about the 3x oscillator is that its presets can be accessed as channel settings. So let's go to the browser and we can navigate that with the controller. I'll get out of the plugin database folder. So you can see here channel presets, and under 3x oscillator, here are all the presets for this synth. So let's try some different bass presets. It's a bit loud and I don't think it quite works with what we have here. So let's try another one. Now, as you can see, this is probably not the best way to be navigating through presets, as it's just one long list, but let's go with this anyway. So that sounds mainly like a sawtooth. It could work, but I think the notes are a bit too low. Talking about notes being too low, I don't think there is a way to change that on the controller, so we'll have to do that in the software again. This could be another awesome feature to have, the ability to transpose an existing pattern. Alright, let's work on the sound a bit more. Maybe I'll add in an effect and use some of these dials to automate some of the parameters. So let's get out of this preset area here. Let's get out of channel presets. Inside plugin database, under effects, under filter, let's load in this fruity love filter. Alright, so now what I want to do is assign the cutoff dial to this dial here. So let's switch to user 1, right click the dial, select link to controller, and then just twist the dial. And now I can control that dial with this interface encoder. So it looks like mapping is a very, very easy process. Some of the aspects of this controller are very fascinating and pretty amazing that the first controller for a DAW has these cool features. But at the same time, it does lack a few things, and I'm hoping in future updates they do address those issues, especially like velocity sensitivity. The limitations of just 4 channels being visible is not a big deal because, as you can see here, we can navigate vertically. So if you have a long list of instruments, it should be easy to navigate through and locate the specific instrument you want to work with. Soloing a channel is quite easy. Just shift, click the button associated with that particular channel and it gets soloed. I'm going to play with the filter cutoff dial here with this encoder. Let's record it in. So just like recording in the MIDI parts, automation is also very straightforward. I want to do some automation on that wobble synth as well. So let's assign the cutoff dial on the synth to the second encoder. Right click the dial, choose link to controller, twist the encoder, and now we made the assignment. Let's play with it. Not bad. That percussion part is sounding a bit silly, but that was a quick look at this controller. It's definitely not flawless, but considering there aren't many options for a well-integrated controller for FL Studio, this is a great product. So I'm giving this a thumbs up. So that's it from me. This is Rishabh Rajan signing off for Ask Audio, and I'll see you in the next one.